Cynicism is just another form of cowardice. For our sergeant are not interested in a midlife crisis. We were to do our freaking work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of the Spotlight Podcast, Success Stories for Veterans, where it is our job to break down and analyze titans from both the military and civilian communities to discover their mindset, their strategies, and their tactics so that you can take those and apply those to your life and ultimately to your transition. Those titans range from New York Times bestselling authors to former heads of state to other divergent thinkers who are out there dominating their field by challenging conventional wisdom. And today we're interviewing Nate Boyer. Nate's transition story begins when he left active duty with the Green Berets to attend the University of Texas, where he ultimately earned a starting spot on the Longhorns football team. He then went on to gain further national attention for his role in the Colin Kaepernick protest. And now Nate is working with Mission 60 and is featured in the book Deliberate Discomfort. And he has taken a lot of divergent paths to get to where he's at. So how does he break down and analyze the situations that he's in? Listen and find out. All right, Nate, thank you for joining, sir.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those of the audience that may not be familiar with who you are and what you do, just give me a quick background.
So you want like the whole story or just the recent story?
So where talk to me about, kind of the tail end of your military career and
Okay.
where you're at now.
Yeah. So I transitioned off of active duty in 2010. I went to college at the University of Texas. So I guess as it pertains to transitioning, I didn't really have time then to think much about any kind of transition because I literally had terminal leave start on January 8th, and January 9th it was my birthday, and I was in the car on the way down to University of Texas in Austin, and January 10th was like the first day of school, and January 11th was the first day of football tryouts. So I kind of like jumped right into that. And then all of a sudden I had football, and I had this new like mission and locker room and team and all that stuff, granted very different from the military. And then later that year, I actually re-enlisted the following year, I re-enlisted in the Texas National Guard. So while I was in college, while I was playing ball, I was also in the Texas National Guard, still in being able to serve with the Special Forces and go overseas every summer for a few months, whether that was a JSET to Bulgaria or Greece, or I went to Afghanistan a couple of times. So I didn't really fully transition until football and the military was over together in 2015. So it was kind of like I almost had like a false transition in 2010, just coming off active duty and going to college, like a change. It's more of it's definitely a transition, but it didn't feel like, I think when we think of transition, a lot of times in the military space, we think of like, I've got this uniform and team and like specific mission and purpose and all these things. And all of a sudden I'm out and I don't have any of those things. I kind of still had them for a while through football. But yeah, when that happened in 2015, I don't want to say there was no like panic or anything like that, because I definitely had things I wanted to do in my life and other dreams and goals and aspirations. But it also did feel like, I'm in my mid-30s now and I'm sort of starting at square zero, which I think a lot of guys and girls that wore the camouflage can relate to.
Yeah, that is something that they talk about a lot. And what I hear a lot is veterans saying they feel like they're behind the power curve.
Right.
So when you find yourself in these dynamic situations like you're in what you're doing, how do you either prevent that mindset from creeping in, or do you just embrace it? What's your approach?
Yeah, well, I think in some ways it benefited me. Well, in a lot of ways it benefited me that I didn't join the military. I didn't even really think about it seriously until I was 23 years old. And I didn't go to basic training until after I turned 24. Mm-hmm. So I was already kind of an older veteran in some sense, but I think because of that, it helped me to understand, you don't have to do X at 18, like whether it's college, whether it's the military, whatever. I think we've got sort of these societal norms where we think if we don't, it's more about like, if we don't do these things in this order at this time, then we're screwed. You know what I mean? And we're going to be like, and that's just, it's, it's pressures from various directions and whatever. But the reality is certain people just aren't ready for certain things at certain times. I mean, we're all built very differently, and we've all got our own path and our own journey. And so I think that having that happen to me back then, where I felt sort of like I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't really have a defined purpose or mission or anything like that until I was, basically 24 years old. I think that helped me, having those years of just doing kind of random jobs and sort of different career paths and trying to explore a little bit, because I'm able to understand and realize that that's okay. Like that's not a bad thing. You don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're applying for college. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of people feel that way. And I think coming out of the military is very similar. You come out and you think, okay, especially if you served at a pretty high level and you deployed and, you feel like you're a part of an elite unit. You're like, well, I have to do something elite like right away, or at least be tracking towards that. And if I don't, you know what I mean? That's trouble. And that's just not true. It's just something it's a lie we've sort of bought into. And so like, that's helped me. That's not to say I don't still have my moments in my days of like, what am I doing with my life? I mean, that's just normal. That's everybody. Like, that sort of like panic of like, oh my gosh, like I've been trying to do this thing for a few years and I don't even know if I like it. That's okay. Like you can change, you can do something else. We're built in a certain way, I think, through our military service, that we're able to adjust fire and kind of change our path. And we're supposed to be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome anyway. And so that's it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have that sort of, different, that different background, different experience from before help guide us into the unknown.
Yeah. And I like that you talked about that there is no defined path. And I think that it's even more interesting to hear that from somebody like you, because a lot of people would look at what you're doing currently as something that they would love to do. And then to be even like, well, I don't know if you have it all figured out yet.
What am I doing currently? Do you even know? Because I don't really know.
Yeah. Well, why don't you give me your impression of what you're doing? Because I think, I can see it from the outside looking in, but what's your perspective? How would you explain it?
Well, in some ways, I feel like I don't want to say square one, but like I'm at this point now. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old next year, and I've just recently in the last few years kind of started once again on a totally new career path. I mean, some of the things that help me get by, I don't want to say get by, but help me feel that purpose and that I'm doing something that matters in the moment is being involved in nonprofit organizations, being involved with, I co-founded a charity called MVP, which stands for Merging Vets and Players, where we bring together former professional athletes and combat vets and, help them find that community and purpose once again when the uniform comes off. Yeah. But also stuff like, Warrior Rising, where we're, supporting veteran entrepreneurships, something that Jason's Van Camp started up, who I know you spoke with. Yeah. And all that stuff. But when it comes to career and like what I want to do, like I'm now hustling as much as I can in the film and television industry, and with very limited knowledge of how it actually works when I started out, just 4 years ago, really. But it's been something I've been interested in for a long time and had a passion for even before the military. So I'm in that stage where there's a lot of people, I think more than me having a lack of belief in myself, there's a lot of people in that industry that are like, okay, really cool backstory, want to help vets, all these things, but they also are like, but this person has no clue what they're doing because they're new, you know what I mean? They're the new guy. But it's like, I understand why you feel that way, but just because I've only been doing this for 4 years doesn't mean I have more knowledge and understanding and maybe a different way of doing it that would be refreshing for the industry, because of what I've done in the past. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm in that stage right now of trying to prove myself to other people that, and people say, oh, you don't have to ever prove anything to anybody except yourself. Yes, but when it comes to stuff like this, when you need people to invest in you as in this case, as a filmmaker, like they need to believe, in you and understand and truly think, okay, if I hand the keys to this project in this guy's hands, like, is he going to know what to do? Because he's only been doing this for 4 years. I doubt it is what a lot of them feel until you're able to get in the room, explain what you're doing, show some proof of concepts and all that. So I'm sort of in that stage right now, which is exciting, but also like, I mean, I was an intern like 4 years ago for Peter Berg. I came out here and I worked for free in Los Angeles, just, learning about how to develop TV shows and films, reading scripts and answering calls and making coffee and all that stuff. And everyone, I don't think people realize they're like, oh yeah, you're that guy. You're a Green Beret. You played for the Longhorns and the Seahawks for a little bit. It should just be clear path, easy day for you. And it's like, it's just not like that. Not in the stuff I want to get involved with anyway. Maybe I could have made some other choices, but I'm following my passion.
Yeah, and what I like about what you just said is you talked about basically how to kind of crack the ice in a new industry, and you talked about proof of concept and the need to prove yourself. And I think that's one thing that gets lost in a lot of conversations about the transition is you kind of do have to come and prove yourself. So if I'm an ambitious veteran, and I'm hearing a lot of veterans say that they feel stuck because they don't have that first win, right? How do you go about getting that first win, or how do you go about getting people to invest in you when you don't have that established track record?
I mean, so one thing I want to really emphasize to, my brothers and sisters in the military is we've got to do a better job at humility and understanding that just because I was in the military, just because I went overseas to Iraq, to Afghanistan, I did all these things, it doesn't mean anybody, A, owes me anything, or B, that I don't have to start at the bottom like everybody else. I think it's very inspiring when I do hear stories of people that do that, that are willing to just go, go work in the mailroom for a little bit. I have a good buddy of mine who, he was in the military and, went overseas and, was involved in some pretty heavy stuff, came back, went to law school, did all these things. Right. And he was like, he thought he wanted to maybe be an entertainment agent. Right. Mm. So he moves out to LA, and in the entertainment agency world, it's like half the people that work at agencies, they went to USC. They all kind of have a connection into that world in some way, and he didn't have any of that. I mean, he didn't know anything about it, blah, blah, blah. But he applied, put himself out there. He had the best resume by far, but he still had to start in the mailroom. And I think that would have been really hard for a lot of people to swallow when everybody else in the mailroom there's 23 years old, fresh out of college, and you're 33 years old with all this other experience. Not only did you go to college, you went to law school and all this stuff, and still you got to do that. But if that's what you really want to do, then put yourself in there. And guess what? He went in there. Typically in the mailroom, it's 6 months, and he's only in there a couple of weeks before word gets around about this guy down there that's got this, that's got this background. That's no complaints. He shows up early, he stays late. He's filing mail and doing humdrum stuff, and then he's got people down there wanting to meet him and like bring him up to their office to interview him. And sure enough, he gets put on one of the best desks there. And then he's like fast tracked way faster than anybody else at that company because of the background, but not only the background, because of the work ethic, because he because he applied everything he'd learned in the military, not in law school, not anywhere else, but in the military, that thankless job. I'll do that thankless job. I'll get it done quicker than anybody else. And I'll just I might bitch a little bit along the way, but I'm just going to do it because I have to. I don't have a choice. And, that stuff's rewarded. People really respond to that much more than the accolades and the background and, what we're a part of. So I think we're just in that phase where we didn't, growing up, our generation, we didn't go through what the guys from World War II went through, for instance, where they grew up in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And they went through, talk about a pandemic. They went through the Spanish flu. Just like it totally different. So they were very, very tough, and they went to World War II. Then they came back and they all just went to work, and so many of them had served that it wasn't like as special of a thing as it is like now. So many of them served the country that when they came back, it was like, well, yeah, everybody was in World War II. So like, this is what we do. We go back to work. We're in a coal mine, we're down at the factory. We're just happy to have a job and be back home. Like, we need to embrace a little bit of that, the embrace the suck a bit. We talk about it in the military, but like, life, just because you're not serving in the military anymore, it's not like you get back and everything's just sunshine and easy. Life's hard, and we have to understand that, be okay with that, be willing to put the work in, be willing to suck at something for a long time before we get good. But we've got to put the reps in and put that time in. Just like if you were in basic training and you'd never shot a gun before, it didn't just come to you. You had to practice, and you had to listen to your instructors, and do all those things. So I think that there's an element of that. I'm not trying to be like a prick to the vet community, because I love the vet community, because I know what we're capable of. Yeah. But I also like, it's a bit of a call out, because I get the same way. We all have entitlement issues. I get back and, stuff is easy here. People thank me a lot for my service. And so like, you get a big head. It's easy to get a big head about that and feel like, well, I deserve this, and we don't.
Well, I'm glad that you bring that up, because that is a hard pill to swallow, and it kind of goes along with the job from my perspective. But I like that you talked about kind of being willing to suck at something for a while, but you also talked about your friend just going in there and absolutely dominating within a couple of weeks. For veterans,
he was violent male, though. Like, you know what I mean? That's all a choice. That has nothing to do with intellect. You know what I mean? Like, or really like a skill. He just was working hard. Everybody else is in there. It's just like, God, I can't wait for this to be over. Like, I just want to get out of the mailroom and blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, all right, well, all these people are, pouting and, nervous and whatever. He's just like, I'm just going to work. I'm just going to hustle. And, people notice that stuff.
Yeah. If you are a veteran, you find yourself kind of in that lower echelon to start, but you don't want to get stuck there. Are there any pieces of advice that you would have for making it clear if you're managing up and having that conversation tactfully that you do want to excel and you do want to do the next level?
For sure. No, for sure. I mean, I think, there's definitely a fine line between, letting people, sharing your story, letting people know, who you are, what you did before, and like throwing it in people's face, or bragging about yourself. Like, that's very different. But I think that I think it's as simple as, if it's a company, right. And if you have, a position in that company you'd like to be at one day, or somebody that you notice, you just like the way that they work, or you see them as like, that could be a potential mentor. Like, go up to those people, for at some point, at some level, you can kind of, you don't have to necessarily follow the whole chain of command stuff you had to do in the military where, you only talk to this person. You can go up to the people in these companies, and say, hey, I'd love to buy you lunch sometime and just kind of pick your brain about stuff, sir or ma'am, or 5 minutes for a cup of coffee or on the water cooler or whatever. And, and more than anything, just sort of honor them, ask them questions about themselves, and eventually, like, they're going to ask about you, and then you can talk about, that's an opportunity to share what you did, and maybe they don't know that, or maybe they do know that, but they don't know it to the extent, whatever. Because I don't care what your job was in the military, you've had a lot of responsibility at probably a young age, you know what I mean, and you've done things that young people just don't normally do, and that's like, there's a lot of value in that, aside from take combat war out of it, just, the amount of structure, and I mean, employers love that stuff. That's what they want to see. And, and then you get in good graces with that person. You also learn, and it's an opportunity to sort of, it's a good exercise for yourself too, because I think that's another thing that people in the vet community get a little stuck on. And it's like, what questions to ask, what I mean? Because we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves. So we're always very broad. We're often very broad about things. And I think that's bad, you know, when you're just like, somebody asks you what you want to do. You're like, well, I mean, I'd like to do a lot of things. I want to kind of do everything and this and that. No one knows how to help you if that's your answer. You know what I mean? And it's okay if it changes, but like, you know, I think that being clear, specific, and brutally honest about what you want, at least in that moment, in that time, and you know, what you think is the path is important, and that might change, and that's great. But like those things really help kind of clarify things that are for people that are farther up the chain, you know, in a sense, and you know, if they can help, if they don't know how to help you, that it's going to be tough for them to help you.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing, that clarity makes people a lot more comfortable with you. And when we were talking with General Mattis, he talked about building, you know, allies and the need to do that. And I think that you have a great example of building allies in a very uncomfortable situation when the Colin Kaepernick situation came around. Can you talk to me a bit about, you know, what your thought process was when you were going through that situation, when you have all this attention, but it was really just between two people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think initially, you know, with all that, it was more a frustration with where we were, you know, as a country. It was 2016, and it was right before the presidential election, and it was like this very divided, you know, you got to be Team Trump or Team Hillary. Mm-hmm. And if you're like one side of that, one team versus the other team, like there was no value in the other team's ideas or opinions. You know, they were just evil or bad or wrong. And it's just like, wow. I mean, I just thought it was disgusting. Just as, you know, our country just looked, it was just gross. We're still kind of there. So we haven't changed that much, but I think this whole coronavirus thing is helping with that, as sad as it is that we're losing lives and we're losing
completely
people.
Agree.
But like, sometimes we need some chaos and some disasters, you know, to bring us together. That's just the way we operate as a country, I think. And I'm proud of that, because we do come together in those times. You know, you look at whether it's, you know, Hurricane Harvey or 9/11 or this, you know, we Katrina. I mean, it could be a natural disaster or a, you know, a social disaster, or getting attacked. I mean, we figure that out. So
it's like a sibling rivalry vibe. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you got to duke it out a little bit, and afterwards you're closer.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, so it was like, it was that was more frustrating than anything to me. And then this was just another situation that kind of tipped things, you know, and set things off a bit. And you know, when he started, you know, protesting, sitting on the bench during the anthem, obviously that's like going to trigger people from both sides, right? Yep. And it was like people that are on his side in this argument were just like, finally we have somebody who's brave enough to stand up for what's right. You know what I mean? And then the other side is just like, he hates our country. You know, he's protesting the flag. He's protesting the anthem. He's protesting all these things, not really listening to what his message was about. And granted, like when I first saw it, I was just frustrated and kind of hurt, because I'm a huge 49er fan. I grew up a 49er fan. You know, when I was a kid, it was Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott and Roger Craig and like all these legends. And, you know, so Colin Kaepernick, I was a big fan, because when he came to the Niners, like we sucked for a long time, and all of a sudden we're like in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? We're a good team. And so I was a big fan. And then, so you know, when I saw that, it was just frustrating, because I was like, oh, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? What do you really know? What have you been through? You know, and I still struggle with that at times. But at the end of the day, that's not what matters. What matters is that when I took the oath, like we all did, you know, we raised that hand and we swore to defend the Constitution, which obviously includes the First Amendment and freedom of speech. So like that's the most important thing. And I don't have to like it, but I do have to. Well, I don't have to. I should respect it, I think. And I just thought it was an opportunity to sort of. I mean, I was getting asked to weigh in on this thing by a bunch of media outlets and everything, and I saw it more as an opportunity to just maybe bring people together a little bit, maybe have people relax and just listen. So I wrote this open letter, and it did help with that at a time, and it kind of went viral, and Colin ended up reaching out to me and wanting to meet, so it even affected him in some sense.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that you bring this up because we're talking about veterans, at least in my perspective, as a part of the broader social patchwork of the United States. And I see a lot of veterans saying the same thing. Basically what you're saying, the frustration with the duality of this side is evil or that side is evil. How do you, from your perspective, because you do talk to a lot of these high level people, how do you see vets and what we're capable of providing within that social patchwork that can help with this?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that people understand that we're, as a vet community, we're extremely diverse. We have a lot of different opinions and political stances, and obviously skin colors, and even, you down the line, everything. We're as diverse as it comes when it comes to our country, probably in any job market, I guess. And so I think that's important to understand, because there's definitely this, it's not a consensus, but there's a strong amount of people that believe, oh, well, you signed up to go to war, you must be all of these things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You must believe in all these things. And that's just not the reality at all. Most people that join, I think, do love their country. But what does that mean? Does that mean that like you just blindly pledge allegiance no matter what? You know what I mean? Like that can't be right, because we've had plenty of leaders throughout our history that have done the wrong thing.
Yep.
And so I mean, that's kind of silly. So like, I think that's important to understand that. So to share that with people, to get people to sort of recognize that, yeah, just because I work camouflage and I have that flag on my shoulder, which I'm very proud of, you know what I mean? I'm always going to work towards making this place better, making our country better. What that flag represents better, even though I do think it's the best already. That's not good enough. That's just not what that's not what we're about. That's why we are always leading the way in certain aspects. And, and we don't have a perfect history at all. Our history is a mess. Everyone often talks about, this has just been this paradise for years. And it's like, that's not true. I mean, we've done horrible things and marginalized people plenty. But we've done a ton to correct those things as well. We're always working towards improving that, I think, most of us. And that's what I want to be a part of. And there's no way there's 350 million people in the country. We're not all going to be perfect. We're going to have plenty of idiots, just like in the military, we had plenty of idiots. Like, we are not perfect. I mean, I served alongside people that I did not trust, and it is what it is. Like, it just will never be perfect. But you can work towards it, and you can try to improve that. And I think being a warrior diplomat, like we were supposed to be on these in these times of being at war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, not against Iraq or against Afghanistan, for almost 20 years now, like we've had to learn that, so there's a lot of value in that, in those experiences, and having to listen and work with and fight alongside people that you don't always agree with. And you have extreme customary cultural differences. And that's just, it is what it is. And it doesn't make it easy, but like, we've done it before, so like, let's do this back home too. And let us give us a bigger role. Let us lead the way in a sense.
Do you see what goals do you see that we could lead the way on that would have an impact, or where we could really be impactful as a community?
I mean, leadership roles, and that doesn't mean you need to have the title of leader in some aspect, but whether it's, community projects, whether it's, being teachers, and that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't mean just school teachers. But asking for our opinions, not leveraging us in your argument, and saying, well, this offends those people, and this, this is what those people are all about. It's just like, whoa, so you're labeling all us too? We're being marginalized. We're being put in a box.
Yep.
I mean, come on, like, I'm my own person. Just because I followed orders, and was in the military doesn't mean that I didn't think, I just blindly, just follow the cat eyes in front of me. Like, it's not like that. I had to problem solve. I had to shift on the fly on a deployment and do jobs that I didn't even know existed. You know what I mean? And figure things out when I knew nothing about them in the midst of a combat zone at times. So, like, you've got so much value in those ways. And so, like, when we have an issue regarding something, get my perspective, ask my perspective, and kind of involve me in that. Just because I haven't done this, whatever job it is, I've been involved in that sector for a long, long time. I do have a lot to bring to the table because of my background and experiences. And, so just like in that regard, like, employ me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you've developed a very broad mindset for what most people, I think, your average person thinks about a veteran versus people who've been in. Are there any resources that you would recommend to veterans to continue to broaden their mindset even after they get out?
I mean, that's a broad question.
Yeah. Or what are your go-to? Let me be more specific. What are your go-to resources that you look to? Whether it's books or people.
Yeah, it's more people. And experience, like firsthand experience. I just, if, like, for instance, I'll take the film industry, film and television. I mean, eventually, I want to have my own production company, and I want to be creating my own content. And I'm slowly starting to do that now. But for 4 years, I mean, I spent a lot of time just learning and being an apprentice and, like, shadowing and, like I said, interning, and just working on projects in one level or another, kind of offering my services so I can kind of get in on the ground and in the trenches and learn and see it for myself. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't come to a surprise considering like what we did in the military, but I'm willing to bet in pretty much every industry, it's not as hard as you think. It's not that bad. You know what I mean? It may seem daunting and intimidating and all this stuff, but once you are around it, you're like, okay, I can relate all these things to something I've done in the past, and it may be different nomenclature and different verbiage and, a different type of, ladder climb or whatever to reach that, but you'll be able to relate it. But you just have to go try things. You have to kind of put yourself in those situations. And then, like you said, you have to meet people. I mean, you can read too. I'm just not a big reader, but I like to go see it and experience it and, and meet these people and kind of pick their brain and talk to them and then go see it for myself, because there's also a possibility that you're not going to like what you thought you would like, and that's okay too. But like, you need to just get out there and get into it and get involved, And so one of the pieces of advice I got, from listening to people, but I guess I also did read this, was when it came to filmmaking, when it came to like, okay, I want to make a movie, which seems crazy because they're expensive. 90% of them don't make any money back. And they're just hard to get done. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a huge project and it's just super high risk. Was the piece of advice that I was kept reading and seeing and hearing was just make something. It doesn't matter. Just go make something so you can like learn firsthand what that's all about. And I was kind of afraid of that for a few years because I was like, well, what if it fails? What if it fails? What if it fails? You know what I mean? Which is so counterintuitive to what I'm preaching here. But, so I'm willing to go say that to people, but then I wasn't putting myself out there either. And so finally, earlier this year, I I took that opportunity. Finally, I had a good piece of, a decent piece of content, a good idea, a very, very, very minimal funding, but we had people that were willing to do it with me to kind of go all in too, because they wanted to learn. They were in the same place I was at. And then we kind of shared our story, who we were, what we were all about. There was a lot of veterans involved, and we got people in this town that we filmed, families, the local sheriff's department, all these people on board to like, I'm going to give these guys a chance. I'm going to let them make this thing, because I know they're probably not, they're not coming in and taking advantage of us. They're not making a bunch of money on this thing, because I could see what they're working with. But we just went with it, and we just figured it out as we went. And now we're in editing, and we're getting, sound design done and the music done. And we're going to have this movie that's done. I don't know if it's going to be good, but like the footage looks really beautiful for what we shot it for, money wise. Like it was just nothing. And I think it's going to be a great proof of concept, to kind of circle back with what we were talking about, of like, look, we can do this. Just give us a shot. Give me a chance. Give us a chance. Like we built this team, people that had no skills in this sector, learned to do all these things, figure these things out, and and so now we've got this thing done. Just spend a few minutes watching it and see what you think, and then ask me how much we made it for after. So imagine if we had a little bit of investment behind that, and maybe some more people in the industry that have a great deal of experience that we can work with. But like, we're going to hustle and figure it out and find a way to get things done in a different manner that maybe, the movie industry is not used to. So maybe we're going to change. We're innovators. We're going to change the game a little bit here, and probably piss a lot of people off along the way, but it's all good.
I guarantee it.
Guaranteed. Yeah. Someone will be like, oh God, they're ruining it for everybody else because they're showing that this is possible. We're not all elite here that are in this industry. We're just human beings that are super, super frail. And
we're walking bags of goo.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I'm glad that you circled back around to the proof of concept, because that's exactly where my mind went, was like, that's exactly how you get it. And you get the people involved on the back end too, because you already said, hey, we're just going to give it a shot. And then people are like emotionally invested in it. Is that what you've experienced?
Totally. Yeah. Emotionally invested. And when they're literally invested, when you're just like, hey man, I would love to have you be a part of this. I need you. This is all I can pay you. I know that's nothing. That's way below your pay grade probably, but I'll give you a piece of the pie, and if this thing, by however that works out, if this thing makes any money, you're going to get a nice little piece. Right. But if it doesn't, you're going to have in your credits that you did X on a feature film. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like, you need that. I know you need that. And I know you want that. And so like, it's going to be a month of your time, but it's also going to be, it'll be like a deployment, man. It'll be the most of the good parts of it. We're going to be out there. We're going to be working long, 16-hour days every day, 6 days a week, not every day, but 6 days a week. And, it's going to be, every day you're going to have a bunch of stuff go wrong that you're going to have to figure out. And we're just going to have to figure it out together, but like, that's like the hardest parts of training. We look back in our military experience, the hardest parts of training, in the moment, it may have really sucked and, been frustrating and all those things. But when we look back on it afterwards, those are typically some of the best memories. You bonded together with the man and woman on your left and right. And you guys just made it happen as a team. We just figured it out. And that is extremely rewarding, and that makes me feel alive. Like I love, that's where I find, feel most purpose filled, when I'm like solving a problem that maybe somebody else wouldn't have been able to figure out, and that makes me feel like, wow, I am special. Like I do have some value here. The world wouldn't be the same without me. And so I think that's possible in any industry. It really is. It's tough because it's scary, but I guess my point is, like, you don't have to go after these big fish, and it doesn't have to be as big and perfect as you imagine it will be one day. It's probably never going to be that perfect anyway. But like, it just do something. Just, it doesn't have to be huge, but just do something, make something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree, because I got tech obsessed when I was trying to launch this podcast, and now it's a webcam and a microphone. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
That's all you need.
And nobody cares.
Yeah,
Nobody cares at all. And that to me was a mind-blowing experience. But can we shift gears, because I was getting ready to ask you something else, but this is a great little psychological trick that you just dropped on everybody. Was when you're pitching this person that you were pretend talking to, is tell them like, hey, this is what you want, and this is also what you need, so let's do it. How do you go about finding out what people want and need, so that you can use that in your pitch to kind of bring people with you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think, well, obviously asking them, but at least with this industry, with the film and TV, it's very competitive. There's a lot of people that want to work in it. I think a lot of people have including myself, when they first came out here, had this very pie in the sky. You see maybe like a brilliant, we'll say like a Steven Spielberg, some like icon. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be that person. It's like, okay, great. What did that person do to get to where they were? I guarantee his first movie wasn't Saving Private Ryan, or it wasn't Jaws. It wasn't those weren't his first movies, guys. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he had to learn, and he had to just sort of immerse himself in that industry, in that world, and that whatever. And maybe he started doing it at a very young age, so maybe he had a huge jump start. Maybe he started at 8 years old. I don't know. But that's great. You're not that person. You're not that age. You are what you are. So start now. Don't waste time waiting and trying to find the perfect moment, or seeing how you can kind of cheat the system and use your story to navigate around having to do the work. So when you're trying to find, enlist people to join you, you have to incentivize them, of course, in some way. You know what I mean? People don't just want to. I think a lot of people have this idea that oh, I'm going to be the ringleader here, and I just need, I need the people in the circus, and so I'm just going to go find people that just want to be in the circus. But it's most people, especially the right ones that you want working with you and for you, they want to run their own circus too one day. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So find those people, incentivize them in some way, and just ask, just like when you're asking questions to somebody that you see as a mentor or a leadership role, or someone you want to learn from, ask just as clear and specific and brutally honest questions to people that you want to work for you, and find out what they actually want to do, what gets them excited, and then give them something that relates to that in some way, get them involved in something like that. I mean, I think that's crucial.
Yeah, I like that you brought up excitement, because if you can, man, excitement's the ticket, at least from my perspective. So do you have any, and I ask you this because you have done so much with football, and you've been around so many different athletes, and everybody's got their pregame routine. Do you have any routines that you recommend just on a day-to-day level that you think help keep you grounded? Or are you more of a fly by the seat of your pants type of person?
I am a fly by the seat of my pants person, but I definitely see the value in that. And I honestly wish I did more of that. Just recently I've been talking with a guy who, this guy's had a crazy story, but he's a Buddhist monk, and growing up before, not growing up, but his, sorry, dogs are barking outside.
That's fine.
But, when he was a younger man, he was a CEO in Thailand, ran big business, made a lot of money, but he was unhappy because it wasn't what he wanted to do. It wasn't who he felt like he was. Right. And so, he was willing to change all that to find his, his peace, his happiness. And he ended up going into the monkhood. I guess that's what it's called. But he became a monk, and he learned a lot about, himself and all that. But he's also very dialed into success in business, success in management, success in industry. So I started just kind of talking with him, because I was trying to find, and I'm still always trying to find, little tricks that help ground me, that help keep me centered, that help kind of reset me back to zero when I have not only like a low because something just doesn't work out that I was so close on, and it's just a near miss. But the opposite too, when something, I get really excited about something because it's like, the ball's moving forward and this could be really big, like to help manage that expectation a little bit. I'm not saying like I want to temper people's excitement, but just understand that like this excitement right now is just this excitement right now. So like be in that moment, enjoy that, then know that, your life's just not great now. Your life just doesn't change because you got a job. It doesn't work like that. And, something that he preaches every day, every morning, he does something called research meditation, which is super interesting to me because passive meditation where I'm sitting there trying to just breathe and not think about anything is impossible. My mind it just goes a bazillion miles an hour and I'm thinking about all these things.
Or I fall asleep. That's my other problem.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. At least you get a little rest.
Yeah.
But so his whole thing is like, he sits there and he breathes, and he pays attention to his breathing. But when something comes up in his head, and he does this for like 5-10 minutes a day, it's nothing. He starts the day with it. When something comes up, whether it's a good thing, bad thing, whatever, he explores it and he thinks about it. Like, okay, why am I feeling this way about the situation? What attachment have I put on, what emotional attachment have I put on this actual thing or this person? What am I adding to it that I can control? Because you can't control other people for the most part. You can't control things that happen, like this virus and a myriad of things. Like these things just happen, but you can control. We always talk about that. You control how you react to those situations. But you can also control, in some sense, like, or I guess not really control, but understand why you feel a certain way about it. What's your emotional attachment to it? Why are you getting super excited about this thing? Why are you getting super bummed out about this thing? What is that? And so just sort of breaking it down kind of piece, but like deconstructing the situation and understanding why. And it doesn't have to be like this super, psychological childhood related thing at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can just be, it's almost like a form of, not post-traumatic stress, but like, something that has happened in your life before that is dictating why you're feeling this way about this next thing, like a breakup or something with a girl, of course.
Yep.
So you have a breakup, and then the next time you're in a relationship, you're seeing some similar signs. You start to be like, oh, something's not right. We're going south again. And it might not be true at all. You know what I mean? But like, so stopping in those moments, taking some breaths and trying to like break down like what's going on here. But I think it's also important to do that, as I mentioned, on the highs, in the good stuff too, because those highs lead to lows. We ride those highs and we get like, we get up in this, in this mindset and position where we're like, oh, well, everything's great now. Well, I'm on a rocket ship. Like, what could go wrong? Well, rocket ships crash too. So, like, just remembering that and thinking about, okay, how do I help mitigate that? I don't want this. What can I do to still improve what's happening right now? And then just, breathe through that and understand like this might not work out. Okay. And that's okay. It's just cool that I have this momentum right now and it might work. Because to me, that's just as exciting or more exciting and a better feeling than the actual achievement. I'm getting that thing. It's like that momentum and possibility. That's sort of what gets me going, and that's what excites me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think swimming to catch the wave is just as much fun as actually riding it. And it is very divergent that you say that he digs into that question, because a lot of other meditation forms suggest that you just let those clouds roll by. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus digging into it. And I think that's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Doing it on the highs.
Certain people are just wired that way. And I think a lot of people that serve in the military are that way. We want to like fix everything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We want to fix everything. Okay. So if that's how we are, it's going to be really hard for us to just let it go. Yep. It's going to be hard. So this is a way to sort of understand that and maybe help let certain things go that you need to let go. But at least if we're just like not ignoring them, we're embracing them, I think that really helps.
I agree. So, Nate, I know you're a busy man. For all the ambitious veterans out there, are there any last pieces of advice that you wish you had known that you now know that you'd like to impart?
First of all, you're exactly where you need to be. You're right where you're supposed to be. Doesn't matter where you are. Like this is where you're supposed to be. There's only I'm a firm believer in that. I don't think there's an alternative possibility of where you're at right now. That being said, you have a great amount of control over where you go next, and what you do next. Mm-hmm. That is up to you. Like, we can't control how strong and smart and whatever, like, capable we are in certain aspects. Like, we can't control what we've been given, but we can actually absolutely control what we build and what we decide to do every day. You know what I mean? So, like, that's important to remember. Like, you can get up every day and you can just work. Like, we have that choice, we have that freedom, and that will lead to great things. But also, I want to say, when you think about self-belief, and everyone's like, how do I believe in myself? You can't just blindly do that. People say all the time, you got to believe in yourself. What do you mean I got to believe in myself? I don't. So, okay, great. And I'm glad that whatever person says that is honest, at least. Because if you just say, I believe in something, or I believe in myself, and give yourself no reason to believe, then it's BS. It's a lie. But, so how do you give yourself a reason to believe? Once again, it goes back to work and immersion, and just like burying yourself in that thing, and exploring it, researching it, learning about it, and then applying it, and just doing it, whatever that thing is, and so, like, over time, eventually you will believe in yourself. You will, if you keep working, if you make those decisions, the things that you can control every day, you do those things, eventually you will feel that level of self-belief. Because I relate that to long snapping a football, take military out of it. When I got to Texas, and walked onto the football team, I never played football before in my entire life. I just wanted to be a part of that because I loved the sport, and I always, I regretted not playing. So once I made the team, like, that could have been enough. Like, hey, I made the team. Great. I'm a football player now, but I wanted to play. And so I was like, all right, I'm not athletic, super athletic. I'm like a decent athlete. I'm a good athlete. I'll say that. I'm a good athlete, but these guys are all elite athletes.
Yeah. You can go, like, smash somebody in rec.
Yeah. These guys are just, they're fast, and they're strong, and they're just incredibly balanced, and all these things that I am not. I'm like, all right. So I look around the team and identify, like, what could I do? What am I capable? What am I physically capable of? Obviously, I'm still going to have to work. What am I physically capable of doing? And I identified that thing, right? And it happened to be, well, there are a few different things I could have done, but I chose long snapping because I thought I had the best shot of starting, best shot of playing. And so I'd never long snapped a football. I'd never done it. And I didn't, I didn't just blindly believe that I'm just going to be a great long snapper. I just was like, well, let me just try it and see if I even like it. And then if I feel like I have any talent, towards it. And so I just dedicated like 2 months, to just like, I'm just going to snap every day. I'm going to snap 100 balls. I'm going to watch all these videos on how to do it and grip it, and, the motion, and how to throw a spiral, and how to add speed. I'm just going to commit to doing this for a period of time. And if at the end of it, I'm not getting any better, or I just feel like, I don't know, then I'll stop. But if I feel like, okay, I've improved a little bit, I think I can maybe do this, then I'm just going to push harder, and I'm going to, go more all in on that. And that's how that path worked. And sure enough, 6 months later, I had an opportunity, a slot opened up, which I was kind of lucky in that, but more, they say luck is the combination of, preparation and opportunity, or whatever. Yep. And so, because I was prepared, because I'd been working, that when that opportunity opened itself up, I seized the moment, and I didn't feel super nervous and stressed out, because I had belief in myself and confidence, because I'd put that work in, and I won the job. And, it's led to a lot of other great things. And, but that's just an example of something I knew nothing about. And I had no reason to believe in myself at the beginning, but I gave myself a reason over that time, because I just committed to it and put the work in every day, even when I didn't want to.
I like what you said about immersion, because that's what I like to name the process. But I know you got to go. Nate, thank you so much for joining on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carson. I appreciate it, brother.
everyone. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Spotlight Podcast. And I just wanted to take a second to ask you who you think should be interviewed on the show. Who do you think is out there that's just absolutely crushing it that the veteran population needs to hear from? That's what we want to hear from you. Send us your suggestions to spotlight@thezenveteran.com. That's SPOTLIGHT @thezenveteran.com. Thanks again for listening.